Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode of my summer wardrobe series. This summer I have a few weddings to attend, as summers go when you enter your 30s. I have 4 wedding dresses that have been collecting and wearing on rotation for the past 7 years, but in all this time I have barely bought any accessory. I don't want a purse that I can only use once a year, so I usually borrow them from my friends, or I use one that looks halfway decent. Today I want to challenge myself to make a few accessories that can be used with all my wedding dresses, but also for everyday life. I will start by making a bag. These are the dress options. This one is the oldest one I own. I love the color and texture of the fabric and works great with super hot weather. Then I have this black one, which I bought during a year when I somehow had 4 weddings in a row and just one dress. It's not really my favorite, but it does the job. This one was tailor-made for me in Vietnam and it's the most comfortable of the 4. And finally, there's the dress I made myself using a vintage pattern from the 1940s. I know this one is your favorite, the comments agree, but I already wore it to the last wedding I attended. In my head, I like to rotate them, so technically it's the dune dress turn this time. Whichever dress I end up wearing, I want this purse to work with all of them, so I can finally stop asking my friends if I can borrow one. I spent a few weeks looking through sewing and crochet patterns before settling on this cute design. Then I picked this soft pale yellow because I think it's neutral enough to pair beautifully with every dress. The t-shirt yarn isn't the most elegant material on its own, so to give the bag a more sophisticated look, I'm going to recreate the beautiful wooden handle with this. Altogether, these supplies cost me around €5, which goes to show you that you don't need to rely on fast fashion to stay on a tight budget. The yarn label recommends using an 8 to 12 mm crochet hook, but I want the bag to be nice and tight, so it can't keep its shape, so I'm sizing down to a 6.5 mm hook. I don't actually have a pattern for this purse, but I might be able to replicate the one I saw anyway. I made a few test swatches to figure out the proportions and eventually settled on a starting chain of 30 stitches. Since increases and decreases create slightly different shapes, I'm going to work on the center first, then add the increases on one side, then come back to the starting chain and crochet the other half with increases again. Once it's folded in half and sewn together, both sides should look symmetrical. I wanted to give you an update on Momo's health. Unfortunately, the cystitis came back after being okay for a week and he's suffering again. So after speaking with our vet, they recommended that Momo and Luffy stay separated for at least a couple of weeks so Momo can fully recover. Even though Luffy is such a good and sweet kitty and they are getting along fine, tabby cats are very territorial and he's suffering in silence. The goal is to keep his stress levels as low as possible because recurring cystitis can become much more serious if it leads to an obstruction. So we've brought Luffy to my mom's place for a few days. She also adopted a kitten recently, so the 2 little ones have become immediately playmates. It's definitely not how I imagined this going, and I miss having them both around so much, but right now we are focusing on Momo's recovery and following our vet's advice. I know so many of you love the boys, so I just wanted to let you know what's been happening. Going back to the purse, I have one side of the increases done, so I'm going back to the starting stitch and making the increases on the other side too. I have the base of my crochet purse. I believe this took me 2 or 3 hours. Now I will fold it like this and sew the sides with a yarn needle. When sewing this material, I have to be careful not to stitch through the fabric. Instead, I'm only catching 1/2 of each crochet stitch, passing the needle underneath as I go. I'm sewing together the 2 half loops that are facing outwards, which creates a much homogeneous seam. Okay, that was pretty easy. Now I just have to hide the ends, add the handle, and it will be done. It looks like the back is a little bit too wide for just 4 wooden beads. I don't really want to add any more because I think it would throw off the proportions, so instead I'm going to crochet short handles from each side until they meet the wooden handle in the middle. I'm done, look at how cute this turned out. I even managed to use almost the entire skein. This is all I have left, that is very fortunate. It looks a little bit wonky, but I will try to block the shape. I wasn't originally planning to make another clothing item, but then I saw this on Pinterest and I loved the idea. I immediately went to my stash because I seem to recall I had a flowy fabric from the collection the tailor gave me. This is it. I couldn't remember the color and I'm so pleasantly surprised. Although it's a different color from my dresses, the earthly tone could go well with all of them. I'm so excited, what great luck! I sometimes get a little bit chilly at night with my wedding guest dresses, and I don't have any jacket or poncho that looks good, so a sheer cape is the perfect accessory. I have to be careful when cutting because the fabric has some stains. I've watched the tutorial and the construction seems surprisingly simple. I just have to make some cuts and finish the hems, which might be the difficult part because hemming lightweight fabric it's not the easiest thing. Oh no, this is awful. I think the measurements in the tutorial I followed are completely wrong. This is your sign not to trust every tutorial you see online. So frustrating! Luckily, I still have enough fabric for a second attempt, but this time I'm trusting my own measurements instead. I'm cutting a rectangle that is 150 by 200 centimeters, and for the neckline I'm folding the fabric at 45 centimeters instead of 30. Hopefully that gives me a much better fit. Cutting this fabric is very difficult. It slips and slides everywhere, making it almost impossible to get a straight edge. Now comes the long part, hemming all the edges. I'm starting with the back opening because it's straight. I'm folding the fabric once, press it and fold it again. This part was nice and easy, but the other edge is much longer and has curved corners, which makes it a bit more challenging. On top of that, this fabric just refuses to hold a crease, so instead of pressing and double folding everything first, I'm going to fold and sew as I go. Then I will go back, make the second fold and stitch it down one more time. When I'm done with this seam, I will cut the excess and fold and sew again. That took a while, but it's done. Now for the neckline, I'm going to finish it with binding from the same fabric. This ended up being way more difficult than I expected, but here's the finished cape. I actually quite like it, although it looks a little bit odd with what I'm wearing today. I think the real test will be seeing how it looks with my wedding guest dresses. I don't actually own much jewellery, and the ones I have were gifted to me on my birthdays, so making my own as the last project could be fun. I found these beads at the craft store, which could work great to recreate the necklaces I saved as inspiration. I also got these wooden ones that will make this match with the purse. I've never made beaded jewellery before, so I'm going to keep things simple for my first attempt. My original plan was to use this invisible thread, but it's far too curly. Since I want the necklace to lie nice and flat, I don't think it's going to work. I made a quick trip to the variety store and picked up this thin jewelry wire instead. Hopefully this will behave a little better. At first I wanted to make a really long necklace that I could wrap around like a scarf, but the wire is a bit too stiff for that, so I've changed plans and decided to turn it into a choker instead. Now let's see if I can make some matching earrings. I'm going to try recreating this little half flower design. Okay, the finish around the edges could definitely be a bit neater, but for a first attempt, I don't think they turned out too badly. Now for the fun part, let's try everything on and see how it looks with my dresses. Let me know which one is your favorite. I still have time to decide on the most voted dress. Today's accessories might be some of the smallest projects in the series, but I think they will make a difference. Instead of buying something for one occasion and forgetting about it, I had a lot of fun and now I have a few timeless pieces that I can mix and match with everything else in my wardrobe. I think we only have one last video left in my summer wardrobe series, and for that one I would love to make my birthday dress. This birthday feels especially meaningful because I'm turning 33 and will have both an eclipse and a meteor shower on the same day. It will be pretty magical. So if you have any pattern recommendations for a special birthday dress, I would love to hear them in the comments. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I will see you next week. Adeu!